Next, on the Boardroom, Diane Tucker and Roland Young present their Blues Club for advice from the board.
Our business is Tucker's Blues. It's a blues bar in Deep Ellum. We've been open almost 3 years. We opened in the fall of 2009. It's a family-owned business. My brother, Larry Tucker, and Wanda Tucker are also partners, but they were unable to join us tonight. So we're representing all 4 of our business partners. We've done nonprofit together. For 10 years, we had a small theater troupe here in Dallas called the Dallas Drama Company. We've maintained corporate lives. We were all working in corporate environments and doing those things on the side. As part of our presentation today, I'd like to give you an overview, a sense of what our backstory is, how the dream came about, a sense of what our present state is, how we're doing now, and my assessment of what we've done right, what we've done wrong, what we can learn from, and also just an open solicitation for input. So Roland and I will both entertain questions when I've given you those 4 elements, and I'll start with our backstory. It's unusual, I suppose, when you have a blues club and you don't sing or dance or play an instrument. I'm a great appreciator. I don't do any of those things. I can't carry a tune. I have absolutely no rhythm, but I've always loved it. I was born in East Texas, far East Texas, the Texas-Louisiana border. And there were all kinds of diverse cultures there. You could be fishing on Caddo Lake with Caddo Indians in one boat and Creole French in another and African Americans in the other, and it was this wonderful environment. What I most remember is this rich red soil that grew everything, flowers, vegetables, fruits, and music. There was music everywhere. And I thought everyone's life was like that. Everyone sang, which is not to say that everyone sang well. Everyone played an instrument. And I suppose it is a part of living in close community and working in close community. People in agricultural communities who work together always sang, or if they worked on a railroad track together, that sound, it was almost as if it was organic. If you were happy in what you were doing, if you were committed to a common cause, somehow that evolved. And so when I left Marshall for Fort Worth at age 11, the first thing I noticed when we got to Fort Worth is no singing. And it was startling, it was stark. The sense of community was more diverse, more dispersed, very widespread. There was not this intimacy, that village of raising a family, and nobody was singing to me across a back fence. My parents missed it as much as we did, and after about 4 or 5 years in Fort Worth, my parents opened a blues club, and I was in heaven. I wasn't old enough to be there, so naturally I was there every chance I got. It was something about indigenous music, whether that's bluegrass or zydeco, something about what naturally bubbles up out of a people. So when my parents had this business, they had it for 7, 8 years, most of my growing up, and I loved it. I loved that our family extended, that people worked in harmony toward a common goal, that we were all equally committed. And my brother and I told ourselves, we weren't married to our spouses at the time, when we grow up, we're going to do this. Because it just made everyone happy. It was a wonderful way to be both family and co-workers. And we grew up with that dream and kept the dream for 40 years. All of my adult life, we've talked about opening this place. We developed a long-term business plan that was so detailed it was down to what the singers would sing on opening night. Because the dream was always there if you could just keep plugging away at it, if you could keep fleshing it out. So we began to look for locations, and we looked all over the place. We didn't look much in Deep Ellum. We were looking south side on Lamar, when that neighborhood was just starting its revitalization. Uptown, when the old Planet Hollywood was just sitting there as an empty shell. We'd almost get to contract stage with people on a number of occasions, but it never worked out. And then 3 years ago, we went to Deep Ellum. And before we saw the space we got, it was as if it was meant for us to be there, that we'd been searching all these years to come to this space. But it has been quite a transition in the 3 years that we've been there. I suppose what I like about my experience takes me back to an African proverb. On the Ivory Coast, in Ghana and the surrounding areas, there's a word and a symbol, Sankofa. It is a word that means to go back and get it, to go back and take what is good. The symbol is a bird in flight, but head turned backward, picking up off of its own body either an egg or a heart. It's about taking whatever is in the past that is positive and using it to shape the future. It's more than learning from experience, because it's taking the positive. And so what I wanted from my past that was positive was that sense of close community, that joy in work. Opening a nightclub is a lot like being a florist. People are always happy to see you. They come to see you because they feel good about something. And so we have a sense of always celebrating with others, wedding anniversaries, birthdays, etc. So that's our backstory. To start our present state, I'd like to show you where we are. Deep Ellum is an old community, maybe starting around 1880, 1890, when Mr. Munger opens this cotton manufacturing place, and Henry Ford opens the first automobile dealership not in Detroit. They were in Deep Ellum. And so that community saw the change from an agricultural age to an industrial age right there. Workers who were displaced by everything from boll weevil infestations in East Texas to needing other jobs. African Americans, Latinos, whites came to Deep Ellum and found work there in those plants and also in the cotton fields of Collin County. When East Texas was no longer vital, Collin County still was. So Deep Ellum has a great rich history and a great sense of art and music. Everywhere you look in Deep Ellum, there's art and music and history. So we thought we'd take 2 or 3 minutes of our presentation to show you the community where our business is in the daytime. You can't see a thing at night. And to show you the inside of our bar. And this is that video. This street is a good Latimer. It's the street that you approach. And notice all the art along all the sides of the building. If there's space to paint in Deep Ellum, someone's got a brush and is headed toward it. If there's a place for music, it's that same sense of close community. This building you see here is the first building built by a black architect in Dallas. It's now an old gray painted building. Even the windows are gray, but it used to be red brick and dazzling white. And 1915, man, what a heritage that old building had. It's an amazing place. Deep Ellum is almost a city in itself. I love the Deep Ellum, Texas sign. It's like, well, we're not part of Dallas. Actually, we're on our own. But the columns in the middle of the street are painted. The sidewalks can be painted wherever there's art. Our place, Tucker's Blues, sits right along with a lot of other restaurants. We don't have a kitchen. We only have a bar. And that works to our disadvantage. Tucker's Blues is a hideaway. We don't have a street front. You have to go down this long walkway, which seems almost intimidating. It's like, where am I going? What's going to be back there? But we had this old sense of a speakeasy, a hideaway from years long gone by that we wanted to recreate. There's a patio upstairs and down for smokers, since Dallas obviously has no smoking indoors. And inside, we focused on those same 2 things: history, art, same 3 things: history, art, and music. We tell stories every night. We were trying to think of what we could do in Tucker's that would distinguish us from every other club in town. Not only Deep Ellum stories, but just blues stories. These lives are so fascinating, and there's so much personal inspiration that can be drawn. We have pictures all over our walls. Album covers line the walls to the restrooms, but there's also huge oil paintings. I'd say 50% of the paintings in this room are originals. Local artists just bring their work. Once we started doing it, folks would just start coming in and say, well, do you want to hang this? Well, would you like to hang that? And so maybe 50% prints, maybe 50% of them originals. And we try to represent that diversity in blues. People whose music categories might not, their genre might not naturally be blues, but it became that. That's our stage. We probably have 4 nights a week we'd like to be open as our target. Fridays and Saturday nights with live entertainment. We did something last night called Mama's Party that we've done maybe 25 times. It's a fundraiser for theater professionals. So they mostly sing show tunes, and most of them are performing artists with local theaters, or they're with a road show that might be at Dallas Summer Musicals or at the Majestic. Since Mondays is a black night for theater, since everything's dark, it's a good night for them to come there and raise funds for somebody who might be ill and doesn't have insurance or something like that. We've also done Latin Jazz Night on Thursdays, and we've done that for a couple of successive weeks. As our business grew, we got opportunities to do other things. These are some of the performers who performed with us. Just a montage of the people who were there most often. And some of them, I'd say, are there all the time. When we summarize payroll at the end of the year, these are the people who are getting it. We did 2 one-woman shows, tributes. One of them was Billie Holiday, one was Etta James. That's the actress who played Etta. That's the actress and singer who played Billie Holiday. We wrote those shows at Tucker's. We produced them at Tucker's. And they both went to New York. Both the shows were in New York this year. One was also produced in Fort Worth. Our next show we hope to do is Janis Joplin. They're just these legendary figures who lead these richly inspirational lives. And so we thought telling stories would distinguish us from other venues. Doing those one-character shows would distinguish us and would also keep that Deep Ellum heritage alive. So in addition to the 4 nights at Tucker's, we also do Tucker's Blues at the Mansion Hotel on Turtle Creek. The general manager of the mansion would come to Tucker's often and bring guests from the hotel. And he began to tell us, what you do here, we have to do there. You've got to come up there. So we started in January of this year doing Tucker's Blues at the Mansion. And it's been a great experience for us and exposure to an audience that would not otherwise ever have seen us. So, backstory, what we look like, present state. Where we are now is a real quandary. And my concern is that we may be so passionate about what we're doing that we've lost objectivity. Maybe the thing to do is cut and run. But we have been open since September 2009. We occupied the building in March 2009, and we just did the whole sweat equity thing for months. The building was over 100 years old. It hadn't been occupied in some time, and the amount of repair required was overwhelming. But it was also joyous. My husband and my brother would go to work there every day and stay all day long. And what I remember most about these men in their 60s is that they'd be skipping when they came home at the end of the day. It was that joy from work. We're all pretty compulsive, pretty workaholic types. Someone said earlier, you go to sleep thinking about your business and you wake up thinking about your business. That's definitely what we do. And all of our energy has gone into it, but it has not been profitable. And we're on the ropes. This last weekend is the first time we were never open, and I was heartbroken. But I can't figure out if the economy is very difficult for all of us who are in business. I can't buy into that because it's difficult for everyone's business. And Deep Ellum itself is always in a state of revitalization, it seems. It is a community that seems to constantly be redefining itself. Sometimes that works to our disadvantage. It's kind of like our location. It's a cute little hideaway, but sometimes it works to our disadvantage because people can't find us. If I think of the things that, in a self-assessment, that we have done well, the one-character shows, the telling the stories, doing Tucker's Blues at the Mansion, taking the shows to New York, high-level customer service. People always tell us they love it there, which is making it even more addictive. People just love it. But how do we get more people there? What I think we may have been undercapitalized on was advertising. We spent so much money remodeling the building. My husband does a lot of things well, so stained glass and woodwork, and he framed every picture you saw in that room, redoing that door. The door didn't look like that. It was just a regular old door. It wasn't blue, and it didn't have those lovely wood panels. And the bar, he redid the bar. He installed the lighting and sound system. He maintains all the computer controls, including state-of-the-art point-of-sale system. I don't know what we do. My responsibilities are primarily programming, but his responsibilities are what keeps us here. Sometimes I tell my husband it shouldn't be called Tucker's Blues, it should be called Roland Young, because of how much he does to keep us going. Well, we've run out of all of our resources. We're two retirees. The business is still there. Last weekend was the first time we weren't open, but I don't know what to do. Will more advertising grow the business? Do I need funding that is debt or equity funding? Do we need no funding at all? Should we now let this go? Which of course depresses both of us more than we care to discuss. I just love it. And I'm very, very glad we had this opportunity. Most of the servers and bar staff who work with us have been working with us since we opened. It's a high turnover position, but no one turns over. And when people do leave, they cry. I remember taking a server home about 3 weeks ago, and it was her last night at Tucker's, and she and I are standing outside of her apartment, and she's crying and I'm crying. And as I get back in the car with my husband and we drive off, she's on her knees in front of her building. And I thought, oh my goodness, she was moving away. But it was just that sense of how much we bonded because of what we experienced together. So it's like that old bird, that Sankofa. When customers come to me at the close of an evening at Tucker's and say, I haven't had this much fun in 20 years, or this is the best time I've ever had, I realize I'm like that bird. We're not only picking things up, but we're laying things down. We're leaving those pleasant, positive experiences for others to take from the past with them into the present. So any advice you have for us, we would welcome. Any questions we can answer, we will certainly try to. I don't know if I've missed anything that I meant to tell you, but I think I've covered most of it.
By the way, if you're there telling stories, I can't imagine the place not being full. You're just mesmerizing, and your speaking ability are phenomenal.
We're trying so hard.
John, turn it over to you.
You know, when Diane and the education she and her husband have are it's pretty phenomenal. But when she sent the application, she did such a great job on it that I said, I got to call this lady. And when I talked to her, you know, my heart just went out to her. And so I wanted to drive down there so I could see it myself. And I went down the daylight, and I just kept shaking my head. It was just so bad. And I said, I got to go back and tell this lady straight up that, you know, this is not something that'll go, and I'm the eternal optimist. And so I went back on her Friday night about 10:30, and about 1 o'clock that morning. And it wasn't packed, but there was a lot of people there, and they were having a ball. And they were clapping, and they were hollering, and she got up and she talked about B.B. King and being raised in the Delta in Mississippi. And I tell you what, I thought I was in Las Vegas at one of the nicest shows there, or in Bourbon Street. And then I thought, you know, this place is magic. There's some way to get the wires on the right cylinders, because there is so much there. You go down there one night and experience it. It's just phenomenal.
Thank you.
And how much is your rent a month?
Well, they've been giving us a break. Our landlord has been helping us a whole lot, so we're not paying what we should be paying. This is Madison Partners who owns us, and the owner of Madison Partners, Susan Reese, has been bending over backwards.
But how much is the rent?
It's $2,800 a month.
Yeah, because he'd have a hard time renting that.
Because it's such an old building.
He's being nice, but it's a...
I should show you some before and after pictures.
You should have seen it when we went in to occupy it. I was overwhelmed at how much work was required.
And what's your next biggest expense?
Sorry.
Oh, the performance.
Entertainers.
Entertainment.
They won't come on a percent type
We
thing.
try that, but you don't get the best ones that way. Like the young woman you saw that night when you were there. Sometimes when critics come,
strong.
we've been written up in the New York Times. The Sunday travel section wrote about things to do in Dallas, and they mentioned 4 places, and we were one of them. I have no idea when they came, but man, I'm so glad they came on a night like the one you did. The guy says everybody in the room is up dancing around and it's electric. Or patrons who walk in the room who just say, whoa, it feels like I'm not in Dallas. Get that every night. Feels like I just
I'm a
walked in.
Heineken's guy, and $4 a bottle, man, that's cheap. And the service was great. I gave it a 10.
Yay. Thank you.
Your background, the bar, is that your past experience? Mine? Yours? Oh, I'm an industrial engineer, and I'm design and build custom furniture in my spare time. I've been doing that for about 20 years. Do a lot of replication of the renowned artist that does stained glass. So
I'm not
he
sure.
bought me all those books.
I don't know who you mean.
Well, anyway, I've been designing and building furniture in stained glass for well over 20 years, and retired as an industrial engineer from Lucent Technologies, formerly AT&T.
Right. And the bar was
Bar was just something my wife was interested in. I just kind of
absolutely.
was pulled along, following her path.
It's the same way we did that nonprofit theater, which we did for 10 years here in Dallas. My brother, his wife, my husband, and I. And we had not done that before. But it was also linked to that interest in entertaining. And what was most successful for us in those 10 years we did the nonprofit was blues musicals. So we took that experience and tried to transfer it into this one. And of course, working with my parents once I was old enough to actually work with them.
Right. When you opened, was it 7 days a week, or was it?
No,
just
it
a
was
week?
4.
4.
And we opened with a really big splash. If I had to think of something else we did wrong, I'd say that. We had 7 singers a night and 7 musicians, and it was New York, it was
Cabaret.
Vegas. They were in beaded gowns. We had a dress code. We tried to open earlier as opposed to later. We were trying to take this business plan we'd been developing all these years and superimpose it on the environment, which wasn't going to work. Deep Ellum doesn't have a dress code. Everybody wants to wear jeans and baseball caps. So the fact that I wanted them to have on a lovely beaded gown wasn't going to happen.
Right.
People aren't going to come out at 8 o'clock in the evening in Deep Ellum. The fact that I want to start at 8 because I'm older, they don't care about that. So we had to constantly make those kinds of adjustments to the vision, and probably didn't make enough of them.
Are you at a point where you can reinvest more capital, or are you at a point where
Very little.
very low?
We're at a point to where we just don't think we should do it anymore.
Right.
That's where we're, or don't have, we've kind of lost the desire. I know I have, short term, but it's hard.
It's very hard.
It's hard because we're constantly
And we work all the
putting-
time. We work all the time. And we put all of our personal resources into it. Everything my husband had in stocks and everything.
But I will say this though, when we told the landlord that we may be closing, she became very interested because I think she recognizes how vital what we do, how vital it is to the Deep Ellum community. I'd like to think we were the reason some of these new businesses came to that area.
Right.
I mean, it's growing like it hasn't in a long time. But what works against us is our inability to capitalize on some of the food, the food market.
And we volunteer in that community too. Just trying to be that integral part of it. I've told stories to needy children in Deep Ellum for 2 years. And it also gets you outside of yourself. I don't worry about how I'm going to pay the next bill if I'm crawling around on the floor with 4-year-olds, you know.
Right.
You don't think about that for the hour or 2 you're there. And so that's a good thing. But it also gives us a presence in that community to say that we're here if someone wants us to volunteer with something. We've held a couple of fundraisers for events in the community, in Deep Ellum Foundation, Deep Ellum Community Improvement Association.
So I have to ask the question, and maybe I missed this, so I apologize if I did. Why can't you serve food? Why can't you change things?
Well, we can, but we don't have a kitchen.
Yeah.
So, you know, what is it going to take? And we would have to have someone who is experienced in that without doing, we just don't have room to do a major renovation. What can we do on a very limited scale, budget, or not budget, but limited scale, that would enable us to serve lunch? And it could be sandwiches, or we could utilize a grill outside, or put in a vent hood and a stove. I don't know.
So in that case, you'd be attracting people because of the food, not the entertainment, I guess.
Well,
Is
for
that-
lunch.
For lunch.
We're looking at some way. I think we need to look at some way to spread that fixed cost. I mean, we're only open 2 nights a week.
Right,
Over 4 or 5 days,
right.
and then capture some revenue, so that in times when we can't pay the artist, at least we're generating revenue from another source that would enable us to do so.
Right.
We know it works against us, but
Would you be making enough money off of the sale of food, do you think, to stay open and start making a profit?
I guess it depends on what those food items are. You know, performers mention to us all the time that they can perform at another venue that's a restaurant, like Buttons in Addison. They can go to Buttons in Addison. The patrons have to pay no cover, and they pay the band the same thing that we pay them. So bands will say, well, Miss Tucker, why are you charging a cover for us to get in here? People can come to Addison and see us for free. And I say, yes, and at Buttons you're buying dinner, and you're spending much more than you'd spend here on cover. But the negotiation is kind of hard to make. It depends on what you serve. You might could have food and no cover. Right now we charge a cover charge.
Yeah. How much is that? The other thing I was going to ask is, how do you make the money? You've got a cover charge and then you serve alcohol.
Yes, and
right?
so those are our
At the
two
bar.
revenue streams. We've also done some T-shirts or caps or dimensional items like that.
What is the cover? Does that vary?
It varies, but it's 5 or 10.
5 or 10.
So on Latin blues night, Latin jazz night, it might be 5. Last night for the show tunes for the theater people, it was 5. But on Fridays and Saturdays with the main stage show, it's 10.
Yeah. Do you have enough room that if you packed your place, 2 nights a week, that you'd be making a profit off of the alcohol and the
Oh,
and the
yes.
cover?
And the key is packing it. And you know what? This was another way we were delusional. Here was another mistake I made. When we did theater, we didn't have a permanent home. We were nonprofit, so we were getting funding from the state, the city of Dallas, corporations, and we traveled from community theater to community theater, or community colleges, Richland, El Centro, Mountain View, Cedar Valley, and we'd fill those spaces, not sometimes, all the time. Those are 400 and 500 seat theater spaces. So I thought this club that had 166 would be no problem at all. But it's different audiences.
Right.
It's something I didn't dig deep enough inside
Which
of.
leads me to my last question, which is, have you made any effort to try and get the clientele from the mansion who comes in there to come down? And if so, how does the mansion allow you to do that? I imagine they have probably some restrictions on that.
Their restrictions on us are not about promoting the club. It's stuff like you can't sell things, CDs, or can't solicit.
Have you been trying to promote the club
Constantly.
Okay.
In fact, that's what.
And just quickly, how?
Well, we start out the evening that way. We say who we are, what we do, where we're located, and invite them. We bring some promotional items and make them available on the table, that kind of thing.
Okay. That's what I've got. Thanks.
Miss Tucker, you are absolutely mesmerizing. And I could feel your passion, and I'm inspired by it. I think you've got something absolutely special here. What I am not clear about is whether you're selling alcohol, your talent, or the music.
I'd say all of the above.
If you were to pick one, what would that be? Your ultimate passion?
The music.
Okay. If what I am hearing is that other people who are making money are selling music for free, the food is what they're making money on, and the music comes free. And I'm thinking about perhaps you can sell the music and give away the food for free as an idea.
Yes.
And without having to have a full-fledged food service facility. And is it possible? A couple other things. I'm not giving advice at the moment. I'm just.
Sounded like advice to me.
I'm giving advice. Now, let me ask a couple questions.
Please.
In order for you to be profitable, given that you're opening 2 nights a week, how many customers do you need to have, and on an average, how much per ticket, per customer do you need to spend? For example, if you have me there, I love music, but I do not drink. You're going to get $5 out of me, and I think that's a crime. I've already gotten more than $5 worth of your talent on the stage.
That's the dilemma.
Currently, on the average, how much does an individual spend when they show up at your place?
Well, we have a 2-drink minimum and a $10 cover. So I would say the average person probably spends $25 or $30.
On a good night, how many people show up?
On a good night, like 2 Saturdays ago, we were turning people away. But the very next night, we were empty.
But on a good night, how many people show up?
166 and more.
Okay.
Our capacity is 166.
So throughout the evening, somewhere around 200, I would say.
With
on
the
a good
come and
night.
go.
All right. So
What we didn't mention, though, is that recently, 6 months ago, before 10 o'clock, it's free. So you don't pay if you get there before 10 o'clock. So a lot of people try to show up before 10, and it's getting to the point to where they even are trying to have parties of 8 or 10 people before 10 o'clock. And that is getting to be a problem as well. So it's trying to manage those things and still, pay the band and pay the expenses is what's difficult, because so many other venues in Deep Ellum now have free music. So.
And we thought if we targeted 100 people a night, if we got 100 people in and out of there, and we were open 3 or 4 nights a week, we could support ourselves and sustain our business. But I always think we haven't advertised enough for people to know what we have to offer. Most people have no idea we exist. And I would say each night we're open, some customer comes to me and say, I never heard of you guys. How long have you been? I never knew this kind of place existed. Well, that's purely marketing our business. And it is where one of those places I think we really fell down, not having put enough money into marketing at the outset.
I'm hearing that you're tired of it, Miss.
Because it's just Diane and I now.
Okay, so is Miss Tucker tired of it, or is Miss Tucker willing to do whatever it takes?
I would say that not only am I, so is he. I think my husband loves this business more than I do. And I've actually said that to him many times before tonight. Sometimes when we talk about the possibility of the business closing, I'm the one who brings it up. And he's the one who dodges the conversation. So are we physically exhausted? Yeah. Ever got big circles under my eyes? Yeah. But everybody who opens a new business does that, has this experience, I assume, that you just work. And you don't see the end of it in sight. But I would say he is more emotionally attached than I am. There are many times, for instance, if I don't have to be there for some event, I won't go. He always goes for everything. And he's we're both very hands-on. But he's always there, and probably went to the business today on days when we're not open. I would say that the possibility of us closing will have a far more dramatic effect on him than me.
So I'm going to ask one question. Is the intention tonight to ask the question whether or not you should close, or whether or not you're looking for other creative ideas to stay afloat?
My intention tonight is to ask, what would you do if you were me? If you were in this situation, what would you do? If you loved what you were doing and had a whole lot of passion for it and thought you did it well, but nobody knows you're doing it, and you don't have money to promote it more or to continue, what do you do? Our alternative is to go back and get jobs somewhere, whoever's going to hire us. But what do you, so I guess I want to know what you think I should do if you were faced with this same dilemma.
Mr. and Mrs. Tucker, it's very easy to get drawn into the passion because we all feel it very much. But you're asking us about your business. So, are you all taking any money out of this business?
Oh, no.
No.
So how are you surviving?
Our own
401k and
retirement
my
income.
retirement income.
Okay. And how long can that go on?
Not 3 to 6 months, probably. That's why we.
Do you really feel like Deep Ellum is still a destination with all the things that have been happening around Uptown and other places in Dallas? Do you feel like Deep Ellum is still the place that you can make a successful business?
Certainly, Deep Ellum has its share of problems. Parking is
Not the
certainly one
least
of
of
them, and has been for a number of years. People that we've seen in the last quarter of 2009, you know, if you parked in those private lots and you didn't put the money in that little slot, you came out and you had a $100 boot on your car. Well, it got to the point to where we had to pay someone to monitor the lot to ensure that money was being put in the slots so that our patrons wouldn't get the $100 boot. The city didn't really take action until end of 2010. That problem kind of went away, but in the meantime, the private vendors of those lots made about $500,000 in illegal, well, legal and booting of patrons' cars at $100 a pop. Can't do that now because they put controls in that sort of prevents that.
And when I think about whether Deep Ellum is the place for us, I certainly never considered it at the outset. It's an old community, and the building is old, and the plumbing is old, and the air conditioning is old. But Deep Ellum is the historic home of the blues in Texas. And some historians make a claim for, like with Clarksdale and Memphis, and that Deep Ellum was that kind of turning point. In the 1920s, when Blind Lemon and Leadbelly and T-Bone Walker were roaming those streets, they were the most popular blues musicians in the world. So in one sense, I feel almost like it's where we were supposed to be.
I understand that. Let me pose the question a different way.
Okay.
Could you make more money with your business model and your passion if it was located someplace else?
Probably so, yes.
So when is your lease up?
It was 3 years. It's a 3-year lease, September 2009. I mean, 2012.
But we have a very good relationship with our landlord. Although we have a lease, it's not binding.
I understand.
She's wonderful. I
Yes,
cannot
ma'am.
say that enough.
What percentage of your clientele is repeat business?
More than 50. Like 65, 70. We used to do survey cards. We don't do them as often now as we did at the outset. But we'd ask patrons what they liked most, what they liked least, what they wish we'd change. Is this your first visit? How'd you hear about us? Just to solicit feedback. We'd also use little cards to get folks' email addresses or mailing so that we could start sending them information about our events and build a database. And really, really consistently, we'd get people who had been there before, and they love to tell you that. This is my 3rd time. This is my 4th time. I brought my cousin. I brought my mother.
And your clientele, do they walk to your facility, or do you have parking? And what kind of parking do you have that will accommodate your 166 maximum occupancy?
Some people can walk to the facility. It just depends on where you are. But I find most of our customers are coming from long distances. Sometimes people will tell me they're coming from Frisco, you know. And there's a parking lot directly adjacent to us. There's 2 free parking lots in Deep Ellum, but they're always the first ones to fill up. We identify them for our patrons. Parking on the street in most areas of Dallas is free at night. In Deep Ellum, you pay for it. So parking lot immediately adjacent, metered parking immediately on the street out front, and 2 free parking lots within a block.
But that's not part of your...
No, we only have that. It's not our lot. We can simply direct you to the free lots.
I understand.
We don't own a lot of our own.
And how do you, your sales are down from 2010 to 2011. What do you attribute that to?
Sometimes I think that people with just have less disposable income. Those who know about us can't afford to come. And those who can afford to come don't know that we're there. I think it's just a reflection of priorities in people's lives. More than anything else. We still have the same entertainers. We think the caliber of entertainment has not dwindled, and we certainly hope the same is true for service and all the elements of what we do. But people just don't have that money for going out. And I must confess, I'm not sure I'd be going out to a blues club if I didn't own one.
You say that some nights you're absolutely packed.
Yes.
And the next night, very next night, nobody at all.
Absolutely.
Now, I know this is characteristic of clubs. I know that. But why would that? Do you know why you're packed the one night and you're not the next? What was missing about the second night, or what was there for the first night?
Sometimes you can tie it to who's entertaining. But sometimes it's the same entertainer on both nights. Sometimes we would think Saturday nights would be our busiest night. And out of the blue, it's a Friday. Anything can happen. Someone can have a large birthday party and say, I'm bringing 50 people to your club tonight. And you can't plan for it. You don't know it's going to occur. And suddenly what would have otherwise been the slow night becomes the busy night. Sometimes it's who's on stage. But sometimes not. Sometimes the same person is there Friday and Saturday of one weekend. We try to put different entertainers all the time, so no one's there consecutive weekends.
So are you telling me that you don't know?
Yes. I'm telling, yes, exactly, because it varies so much. I don't know.
Okay.
I think we need to find some good PR people and people that make their living getting publicity.
I guess when I think about my business, kind of relates to the same industry, food, you know, with lots of people. But I almost think that for me that I'd rather be selling Fords versus selling Bentleys, right? And with a price to enter, I don't know what you call that, but whatever that is, cover charge. I think that sometimes that could kind of separate, you know, people that are a little tight, and some people feel outraged with that maybe, and that kind of stuff. That if you maybe decided to eliminate that and maybe add another quarter to the drink, right, or 50 cents to the drink, instead of right there it's going to cost you $10 to enter versus, you know, another $1 for a nice glass of wine or scotch or something like that. So I think that that is a barrier. I don't think that there's, talking about selling Fords again, no matter what kind of advertising that you do in the Dallas market, my thoughts are it's all about volume. So I want more butts in the seat. I want to continue to that. So I think that that's a deterrent. Advertising in this market is just impossible. I mean, for a small business of one, you talked about radio, you talked about, you didn't say anything about TV. So the only way that you could probably do that is getting your name out there as some kind of charity, things like that. But that's probably wasting money. So I mean, I'd almost want to drop the cover charge and that kind of stuff. The other thing, if you, I don't know if you're really involved in the operation, I know you kind of guide it, it sounds like to me, but this is the time maybe to cut some staff. Be a bartender, be a server, get actually involved. When I first got in business, I always liked, okay, it was easy to tell if I make it or not, because I take my income in, right, have it in a checkbook, I have deposit by deposits, cash and credit card now, big part of our business, put it in, and when a bill came in every day, I wrote a check. I didn't put it in the file. If it was electric bill, even if it wasn't due, I write a check for it, right? So at the end of the month, whatever, after I paid every bill as it came in, I didn't have to be a rocket star accountant and accrual and gap accounting and all that stuff. But at the end of the month, it was so simple, is I went along, put my money in, my deposit in, I turned around and paid my bills as they come. At the end of the month, I knew exactly where I was. As a matter of fact, today we do it with our computers. We know on the second day of every month, like June the 2nd, I knew exactly, and I won't be off $30,000 or $40,000, but I know exactly what I made because I pay my bills the same way. When it comes in, it's due, and then I have a good sense if is this a lost cause that we're going to lose the rest of my retirement? Is it all going to go down? So I say get more involved. Think about selling Fords instead of Bentleys, and drop the cover charge and give it all you can. And at some point, if you keep track of your money, you'll know that if you're making progress or not. And it might be the right thing to do. You'll see the progress early enough that another 6 months, you'll know each month whether you're making progress towards your goal of making a profit or you're getting the same old stuff. So that's my thoughts.
I think one of the things that you have to do is get food in there somehow. And I'm going to defer to some other people down the line who I think have more developed thoughts about that. But it sounds like that's one of the things that's holding you back and causing people who would otherwise spend time at your place to be going next door. Might actually allow you to open up earlier, and get the crowds you want because they're there for dinner. It's going to take a little while to get a PR person to do whatever's necessary to get the word out about you. In the meantime, there might be some things that you could do to bring in an audience that isn't your typical Dallas person. And the reason I say that is that Deep Ellum has been on kind of a decline. And I'm just going from me as a consumer. I drive down there, I go to the Baylor Landry Center, and I see all the closed doors down there. It used to be a place that I went to all the time 15 years ago. That was kind of where everything was going on. It seems to have moved over towards McKinney. But there's still going to be people out there who want what you are providing, and you don't need to have 2,000 people showing up every weekend night. So while the PR persons are ginning and getting the word out, is there a way you could go to hotels that are downtown now? And there's probably somebody who knows a lot better than I do how you would do this. But when you come into a town, you're in on business, what have you, go down to the concierge and you say, where are some places I can go? Okay? Maybe you guys have tried that? Have you tried? Okay. So I'm sort of preaching to the choir here. That was my other thought about it. Idea. But if you can hit the right people, I think where you are has a real panache to it. I just think the history that you know about, most people in Dallas have no idea about anymore. So you need to look at it as something else than maybe just being Dave Bellum. Maybe it's something else that has more to do with New Orleans style jazz or what have you. Not necessarily selling yourself that way, but looking for that kind of aficionado.
Like I said earlier, have I'm brought in by your passion as well and your voice. You're an excellent speaker. Entrepreneurs put 100% into what they're doing if they're going to be successful. I'm going to go with Greg and say that during the day you ought to be out hitting everybody you can hit up to get people in, going to every hotel, getting those people to you, and then be open every night. If with my 60 stores, one of my hot buttons is that my employees never close the doors and leave. If I showed up one time doing my tours, I show up at 11 o'clock, nobody's there. 3 or 4 customers come up, they see the doors locked, and they leave. That person was fired when they got in. I teach it as if it's McDonald's. You know, if you show up at McDonald's and they're out of hamburgers or they're closed, you're not going back again. So you've got to keep consistent hours. If that's only 3 or 4 days a week, it's got to be consistent. You can't have somebody expect you to be open because they love you, show up and you're closed. They're not going to come look for you again. They drive a long way. As for an investor, when you come up and you tell me you've lost your desire and you don't have any passion, you've just turned me off as an investor. I'm going to look for somebody. You know, I don't want to go run a bar as an angel investor. I'm going to buy into the person, and I need a person that's going to donate or that's going to give 100% of what they got, and that they are charged it into it. So, just as an advice, when you're looking for money, I teach in my groups. If you want to make changes in your life, start with your language first. Change your language first. If you say, whether you believe it or not, if you say you've lost your desire, that's the reality that you're creating, and I believe that you create your own reality in life. And even if you don't believe it, if you say, I've lost my desire, that's the reality that you're creating, that's what you're feeding into your subconscious mind. So you got to change, the way I say it is you got to change your language. When you change your language, you change your beliefs. When you change your beliefs, you change your life. So I'd really work on that language. You need... every bar I've talked to, every bar owner I know does advertise, and they put the money into it. I would say your Observer, I think, is where most people, I think it was the Observer, but when I looked into it, every single Deep Ellum bar had a large advertising piece in it, and at least from my experience, you have to do that. I would do something to get food in there. I wrote down some ideas, but you have the experience. I didn't even think of the trucks. That was a great idea. Don't stop with 2. Try to get more, or partner with a local restaurant that's right there close that can just come and deliver or do the grill, whatever it is. I mean, barbecue should be something that you ought to be able to do pretty easily, and I would think that would go well with Soul. I would look for entertainers with a following. Find somebody that has 10,000 Facebook friends, and when they say that they're going to be at your place, they're posting that, and everybody's flocking down to see you. I heard you say that certain entertainers, the first night they're there, they bring in a whole lot of people, and then the second night that they don't. So don't put 2 in a row. Sounds simple to me. And then I'm going to repeat on one of the things that I think John said that's freaking excellent. I hired a college jazz band one time for one of my parties here. They were excellent. And as I was talking to them, they said, boy, I sure wish we could have invited our fellow students here. And that sounds like a great idea, where you go from college to college to college, and you say, come in one night a month. It's your night. You get 10% to your fellow students or your jazz club. You come in and play, promote it to your students, and get that bar to come in. But I'm going to go back and say it one more time, and that's the consistent opening hours. You have to be consistent. If that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's what you posted and that's what you put out, great. But every single Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you have got to be open. I think that's going to be that's got to be one of your biggest problems from your locals, from what I've heard, from your regulars, from what I've heard so far. If I love your place and I think you're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I drive all the way from Flower Mound to come see you, and you're not open that night for whatever reason, I'm going to hold that against you, and I'm not going back.
What's in your subconscious become your conscious mind. So if you're going to decide you're wishy-washy about it, it's not going to happen. The passion that you demonstrated on stage needs to pervade your entire being. That being said, I'm still not clear whether you're selling alcohol, music, storytelling, or non-food. So what I'm saying here is I'm not in the bar business, but I love music and I don't drink. Are you holding it against people who don't drink? I would love to come and hear you tell stories. I would love to come and hear your music. And I'll be happy to pay for that without having to drink an alcoholic drink. So what I'm saying here is this. You've got 7 days a week for which you pay rent. 2 days, perhaps, you're selling alcohol to hope that people will enjoy your music. I'm saying, what about those daytime hours? What about those daytime hours where you could use the facility to do the cultural education that you so passionately demonstrate, to bring people in for lunch, to tell stories, to open the space for education where you can have children come in and listen to you tell stories and not serve alcohol. Then the other possibility is this. I don't know about your other entertainers, I haven't heard them, but I have heard you. If you were to come up with a show, a talk show, a storytelling show, whereby you can go to universities, because if you are going to bring people in of drinking age, you would have to go to those places. I'm a health educator and I'm not promoting alcoholic consumption. However, I am promoting the consumption of good cultural education, which you so well provide. Go to these clubs in the universities. Tell your story. They would be as interested in hearing more from you as the people in this room. And it cross-promotes. And they would want to come and hear the music on the evenings that you are open for music. So that would be my suggestion. If you ask me, I did say I would answer your question. Whether or not, what will I do if I was in your place? If it is something that I'm dead serious about, dead passionate about, there is only one word for what I do, is I will not stop until I get what I want.
You are tired and you are depressed about your current situation. Try to not let that be projected. I have to agree with, it's a bad thing to project that, particularly to anybody who you would like to give you money. So you always want to be honest, but sometimes be careful as to how much of what would be perceived as weakness that you present.
Your success is in your personality. And that's what I think YT was saying. You got to figure out how to make money with that, whatever it is. And I'm not touchy-feely like you, but I love listening to you. You just draw people in, and you should capitalize on that skill and make money with it. Okay? And it doesn't have to be, again. And the other thing that I heard you say that you learned was, I can't put my square peg in a round hole. I can't expect the rest of the world to accommodate me. I have to now learn how to accommodate the rest of the world to make it work. And you've changed, and you need to keep on changing and not continue to do the same things that aren't working, and change. And you're doing those things, and that's a very, very positive thing. You might ask in the same light as your landlord is to ask your entertainers to do one set a month pro bono. Okay, those I'm thinking are your two largest expenses.
Yes.
Okay, attack your largest expenses. You need to cut your costs. Okay, and the other things that the board's talking about is improving your revenues. But at the same time, these people know you. They are in a half hour. We feel what your passion. These people know you a lot better than we will ever know you. So ask them. All they can do is say no. Don't be afraid to ask. I also wrote down hot trucks. Now, I know you've tried it. I saw a new concept in Fort Worth where there was a landlord with a parking lot that literally created a whole parking lot for 20 trucks to line up at lunch, and people flock there as a destination point. Why can't you recreate that for Deep Ellum? Okay, and that might be a way for the crowds to see you. You might move your music outside. Okay, that might be another venue for you to do that with. Lunch, again. I wrote down the VIP cards and seasonal passes. You have an existing clientele. Can you get money up front now that says, hey, whatever, however you work that, where we used to run a VIP card that we literally stamped it and said, if you came to see us 6 times, on the 7th time, you get something free. Okay, but they look to that. Okay, and it gets to be a game. Oh, I lost my card. Well, Dave, when you come back next time, we'll give you a stamp, maybe. You know, and it gets to be a game. The board talked about hotels. Dallas is one of the biggest convention centers in the country. It's right down the street from you. They just built the Omni. Okay, hundreds of thousands of people come there every weekend. You need to figure out how to tap into that. If, as Charles was saying, knowing the bar and the revenues, you should be able to make this work on filling your place up 2 days a week. But as you said, Mr. Tucker, you've got a fixed cost and you want to go 2 days a week. But tap into the lifeblood of downtown Dallas. It's changing. It's ever changing. And yes, there is more competition. And yes, Deep Ellum needs to figure out how to continue to be a destination. But I also liken you have a very unique customer base that you're trying to go after, almost like, I was thinking like a comedy club. People want, but you have a bunch of people that like to go to one spot and laugh. You know, yours is they're coming to your one spot and they want to hear blues. So what's the business model that the comedy club uses to attract people? I remember, you hear I would get free tickets in the mail to improv. But they got to be doing it. They're making money somehow. I don't know. But they've, look at successful business models that have a very defined customer base that they're going after, and duplicate what they're doing to be profitable. Also, I wondered on food, is your rooftop available? And yes, it could be a limited menu, but is there a way for you to, again, bring that profit center in-house? Could you do barbecue one night or stir fries another night? I don't know. But that might kind of be a way around the full kitchen, which I know is a big expense. Maybe you could have guests, caterers come in, and they pay rent for them to serve food. Okay, that might be a possibility. I also think that you need to really sit down hard and decide, you're at a kind of a cross in the road, and you need to decide if we're going to go down this go down this path, and we're going to make a try at it. How long am I going to be willing to do this? I'm going to give it my all for 6 months, and if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Because you're dipping into your savings, and you're nice people, and we want you to be successful, but at the same time we don't you know, you get into that swirling effect as well. So if your heart's not in it, don't be there. But choose a point in the sand to say, I'm going to make it work by. And if it doesn't work, you gave it your best shot.
We appreciate you coming. Everybody give them a big hand.
If you'd like to present your business or product on the Boardroom for advice and perhaps an investment, visit www.boardroomlessons.com.